Doesn't work, never has, won't. Okay, I've done a couple of videos over the years about communism versus socialism or co-ops versus capitalism. We're gonna really hit hard on a co-op and why co-ops are not going to save the world and never can. And in order to do that, I want to just start by saying I'm not necessarily like a full all-in fan of all things capitalistic, nor am I angry about the idea of a co-op whatsoever. In fact, let me just say this. In this ideal world, which is not ideal, and because it's not, it's naive. And because it's naive, it leads to injustices. So we're going to get into this. But in this totally ideal utopian world, which is where some of these soft-hearted people come from, it would be amazing if everybody said, let's all together start a company. We'll collectively do it, and everybody benefits by it in the same way. And we can all vote for equal, for leadership, and we have an equal vote and all these different. That would be amazing. Okay. The problem is it doesn't work, and it doesn't work mostly for the same reason that socialism and communism have just never really worked either. And that is that you have this utopian idea that we're all going to be the same. We're all going to be equal, but human nature does not actually allow for that. So the only way that you can do it is to force people to do it, to literally penalize people who don't do it and make them kind of second class, or to literally kill them. So all in the name of being wonderfully more moral and virtuous people than the rest of us, we will kill you to get our way. Okay, morons. Doesn't work, never has, won't. But let's talk about some co-ops that do work, and let's talk about capitalism that does work, and then let's talk about the flaws in both. Even though leaning toward the capitalistic idea is the better one if you really want to have solutions for the world for all sorts of obvious reasons. One of those is that very few people ever want to start a co-op. Why do they seldom want to start a co-op? Because there's no real incentive in it for them to take a risk. So, for example, you've got this totally remote rural area where there's a gas station needed. You're not going to really run around town and everybody go, you know what, let's all start a gas station. We'll all put in our own money and we'll all work together on this, and we'll vote somebody the leader, or maybe let's just all lead it. It doesn't work for many different reasons. One is that people aren't going to part with their money in order to not get something back from it. And especially if it's a true co-op, they're going to be saying, and we'll bring on other people eventually too, and they'll get what we put in, and we'll all be equal, and it'll be just fine. No, they're going to say, I want a return on my investment. They didn't invest, I won't do that, which makes it not a co-op. So you're going to generally have an investor or person who represents investors say, I will take the risk, I'll start it. They do, and they deserve the reward because they started it. And what happens? Everybody gets the benefit. They all get gas, which is what they wanted in the first place. So who cares that this person makes more money because they have gas? Now, can this turn into something nasty? Yeah. I've seen bad capitalism. And even though I've started many companies and I've even sold them, I will tell you that there's a lot of bad people, bad players in capitalism that have so much money that they can influence governments in a very negative way. They suppress their workers. But there's a lot of bad news there. So I'm not an all-in defender of this. I'm just saying it is the best way to do it. And if you have to pick a utopian, great idea that never works and suppresses people, or a less utopian idea that actually does work quite often and can help a lot of people, that'd be great. But here's another way of looking at it. If you actually had this amazingly good-hearted, non-sinful Christian attitude toward things, you could do co-ops and capitalism. They could blend together because you would barely tell the difference between the two of them because of how people would be treated. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Okay, here's another thing about it. Co-ops, they can survive okay once they get started, but people don't start them. So they generally aren't sitting around going, there's a problem that needs to be solved, let me solve it, and get everybody to rally around. So you wouldn't have too many things solved. In fact, there's about 360 million companies or businesses worldwide, and these stats are kind of hard to gather. But of those, when you remove agricultural co-ops or credit co-ops, which would number about 3 million, so even 3 million to 360 million isn't even close, but you remove those and you put the worker co-op in, it's only about 100,000 to 150,000, or 0.03 or 4% of all of the 360 million businesses out there would actually be co-ops. And if you remove the companies and you kept the co-ops, we would all starve overnight, literally overnight, because you cannot actually sustain what happens through co-ops. In fact, even in France or Italy or Spain, I should say, or Argentina, 99% of the businesses are regular capitalistic run businesses, even though there are some co-ops there that have done well, and they number in the maybe 17,000 number in some of these countries. It's nothing compared to the millions that are not that. But let's really get to it, because I know some of you total big fans of socialism co-ops are about to go, well, what about Mondragon? Because that's the only one that you talk about. Of the maybe 7 years that I've done this sort of thing, and I've occasionally talked about this topic, there's always people coming in and hating on me. And they say, but this man knows nothing. By the way, they always say this. You're an idiot. You know nothing. You have no life experience. Ignore the fact that I've built many companies and I've had thousands and thousands of people that have actually worked for me, and that they're happy. Ignore all of that, okay? And let's just say that I'm stupid like you think, because I don't mention Mondragon. But let's also point out your iconic business in a couple of different ways. This is a Spain company, okay? And it's the only one ever that's ever been used at all in any of my videos to make my point invalid. I could pick from 360 million capitalistic run companies to make my point, and you can come up with one. That says a lot. Not only that, you don't even know about the company that you claim I don't know about whatsoever, because you forget very obvious facts. Fact one, it was founded by a Catholic priest. This is the point. It wasn't founded by somebody who would have a personal incentive. The only way you can found it would be by somebody like a Catholic priest who doesn't really care if they own anything and they want to do some collective good, and is wise enough to infuse a Catholic culture into this sort of thing, which was very, very smart. So yeah, great idea. But even that didn't work great, like you say, in some utopian perfect fashion. They faced bankruptcy problems. And right now, in order for them to expand, so currently right now, because of their expansions, they couldn't keep the model. Only about 1/3 of all people that work for Mondragon are actually the traditional co-op member with full voting rights and everything else. About 2/3 are not. They're either more like a traditional contractor or employee in order to grow their business. So there's a two-tiered system. There's actually like a second-class citizen within this utopian idea of socialism that you claim to be so amazing. So the fact of the matter is that neither one is perfect, but one of them runs with human nature, the other one's against human nature. And both can be run by bad people, okay? So let's just look at the stats. Let's look at the reality. If you want to save the world, you can go ahead and find maybe a couple hundred people that will join you in starting a co-op. No complaints here by me. I'm just telling you that's probably not going to happen. But let's say there's a problem that you know you need to solve and you can't get it done that way. Well, maybe you should invest in it, start a business, and then when you start that business, be very fair to your employees. Don't overpay yourself. Share your bounty. Allow people to be happy. Give them freedom in the way that they manage their roles and their responsibilities in their work. And wouldn't you be getting basically the same thing that you would have out of a co-op, but in a more practical sense that allows you to actually get it done and make it happen? No matter what the case is, keep Jesus at the forefront and think about his principles. Because whatever you do in work, if you are not doing what you do in work to help other people, and also in a way that brings you closer to Christ because you're sanctifying your soul through the work that you're doing and you're uniting it with Jesus, then what's the point anyway? Become holy through your work. All things good will happen.